Wings of Fire is meant to be a kids series, but there can be quite a few horrifying moments sprinkled throughout the series. After all, the story does involve war and tragedy. In this video, I'll be discussing the top 5 scariest moments of Wings of Fire, ranked. Each moment gets more intense as the video progresses, so you're going to want to stick around until the end. Please keep in mind that this video contains spoilers for most of Arc 1, The Dangerous Gift, and Darkstalker Legends, so if you haven't read those books yet, then please click off. Also, before we start the video, huge shout out to my patrons. Crazy Roblox Man, LordIsopod, DragoLover95, Springtail Productions, and 3 Moons. Thank you so much for supporting me. Links to their social medias are in the description down below. Anyways, without further ado, let's get into the video. Number 5, the Dragonette Prophecies Prologue. I think a really chilling moment in the series comes right at one of the very first pages you'll read, the prologue to Book 1. In it, you'll read about an Icewing named Hvitur who works for the Talons of Peace, and him desperately trying to escape after having stolen a Skywing egg for the prophecy. Well, Hvitur meets an incredibly dark demise after being captured by Burn, and then thrown off a cliff. But to make it even worse, Burn makes him watch as she drops the Skywing egg off the cliff, killing the unborn Dragonette inside. Then, when she watches the prophecy supposedly be ruined right in front of his eyes, Hvitur is killed by having his wings ripped off, being stabbed by Burn's venomous barbed tail, and then being thrown off the same cliff. As soon as the series begins, you're already met with pretty dark themes, and know what you're going to be in for. Number 4, Gill's tragic death. Another shocking and even scary moment in Wings of Fire was when Tsunami killed Gill in the arena. Okay, if I'm being honest, all of those arena scenes were pretty freaky, especially with Peril lighting other dragons on fire. But I definitely think Gill's death was quite tragic and even pretty horrifying when you learn the truth about him being Tsunami's dad. While being put in the arena by Scarlet, Tsunami was pitted up against another seeming to fight. What had once been an innocent dragon who hoped to achieve peace in the land of Pyra became an insane one after being deprived of water for months. And so, in his fight with Tsunami, he became rabid and tried to kill her. The seeming princess refused to harm her fellow tribemate, but was angered to the point of committing the act when Scarlet teased her about being too scared. And so, Tsunami snapped the neck of the seeming in the arena, only finding out later that he was her father. It's quite creepy to read about, especially when you consider the fact that the only alive dragon who knows the truth is Tsunami herself. Although, I guess that's not the kind of thing you share with your mother at dinner. Number 3, Burn's Weirdling Tower. I'm pretty sure every Wings of Fire fan knows just how awful and disgusting of a dragon Burn is. But one of her worst crimes is almost never brought up, and it's something that can be quite disturbing. The fact that Burn stuffed dragons who she thought were weird or interesting. It was shown pretty early on that she had a fascination with mutations and oddities, but in Book 5 it was taken to a whole new extreme when we got to see her Weirdling Tower in the Sand Kingdom Palace. It contains stuffed humans with pale skin, 7-toed dragon talons, and a bunch of other dragons and creatures with deformities. It's an absolutely chilling and even disgusting part of the book, really keeping readers on their toes and concerned about what could really happen if Burn would win the war. And to make matters worse, the character's point of view we're reading from is a dragon who is brought there to be stuffed. Yikes. Number 2, Jerboa's Dark Past. I think this one really shocked readers. In The Dangerous Gift, we learned the incredibly tragic and even nightmarish story surrounding Jerboa III and her painful existence. I definitely think this is one of the darkest storylines in Wings of Fire, as it dives into some really messed up stuff. Jerboa artificially created her daughter and modified her however she liked, over thousands of years. If Boa had any traits she disliked, she would simply rewrite her and erase her memories. If there was a task Jerboa despised, she would write it into her daughter as being something she loved to do, getting her to complete tasks for her while she sat and watched. Whenever Boa learned the truth, she would just have her memories erased, and her mother would start over, again and again, for over 2,000 years. Eventually, Boa was able to stop this cycle of abuse and mistreatment by trapping her mother in ice and tricking her into giving up her powers. However, out of revenge and anger, Jerboa cursed her daughter in her final moments, ensuring that she'd never forget about who made her. From that day forward, anytime Boa used her newfound animus abilities, she'd lose a part of herself. Literally. From her venomous tail bar being painfully removed by magic to her no longer having most of her talons, Bo was put in constant pain until she eventually decided to cast one final enchantment to remove Animus magic forever, at least in their current generation. Honestly, the way these scenes play out in the book was super creepy and proved to be a very dark twist for what had previously been such a lighthearted book. And, falling in at number 1, Arctic's brutal death. If you've read Darkstalker Legends, you knew this was coming. By far the scariest scene in the series comes in the pages of this book. Darkstalker Legend is the darkest tone book in the series by far, though this scene especially stood out due to the pure brutality of it. Throughout Darkstalker Legends, Darkstalker openly shows his distaste towards his abusive father. However, by the end of the book, when Darkstalker had reached his lowest point, he decided to do something that would tarnish his name forever and leave his entire tribe living in fear for thousands of years to come. Pushed past his limit, a nearly insane Darkstalker uses Animus magic, control his father, and have him oof himself on stage in front of the entire tribe. I'm not going to get into the details because this scene is incredibly graphic and disturbing, but you know what happened. Not only did this traumatize everybody in the tribe, but it also forced the Nightwings to flee from their home in terror. Instead of living in their lavish kingdom, they'd be stuck on an awful volcanic island for an incredibly long time. And to make things even worse, Darkstalker was proud of himself with what he did. He looked over to his side, happily awaiting Clearsight's reaction, only to find her gone and ready to complete her and Fathom's plan to put Darkstalker to sleep forever. Honestly, this scene speaks for itself. It is the downright scariest scene in the series due to how graphic and dramatic it ended up being. Tui herself admitted that Darkstalker Legends is her darkest book, and I totally agree with her on this one. I know there were a lot of scary moments, but I wasn't able to include a lot in this list, like the Royal Swing Massacre and tons of others, but I decided to just stick with a few that aren't discussed too often, yet still send chills down my spine. The Royal Swing Massacre is definitely one of the darkest scenes, and I feel like that's a whole video topic on its own. Anyways, what do you guys think? What other scary moments are there in Wings of Fire that I didn't mention? Let me know down below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!